You're listening to the winning literary show, Off the Shelf Books Talk Radio, live with host Denise Turney, author of the books Long Walk Up, Portia, Love Pour Over Me, Spiral, Love Has Many Faces, and Rosetta's Great Hope. Turn up your dial and get ready for a blast of feature author interviews, 411 on book festivals, writing conferences, and so much more. Ready? Let's go.
All dreams come true if we have the courage to pursue them. All dreams come true if we have the courage to pursue them. And that is from Walt Disney. And he start out like small and work his way all the way up from living in a room over a house or in a church to what Walt Disney and Disney land have become today. All dreams come true if we have the courage to pursue them. And I want to welcome you, whether you're one of our loyal listeners who've been with us we over 15 years, you guys. We've been on the air over 15 years, or this is your first time tuning in to Off the Shelf Books Talk Radio. I want to let you know that you are listening to the winning book radio show, Off the Shelf. Welcome to this March the 6th. You know what, I was just thinking yesterday and earlier this week. I said, oh, my goodness, we are already in March. So if you have a goal, a dream you want to come to, you better start pursuing it right now, because time just keeps on moving and moving. But I want to thank you again for joining us, and we have an insightful and talented author on deck for you for today's Off the Shelf, and I'm excited to introduce you to her. But I want to let you know about two books. One is Awaken Awareness of Inner Love, and this is something that I say and I've experienced in my life, different ups and downs I've gone through. If you don't practice daily self-love techniques, it could be listening to soothing music you enjoy, not music that gets you too amped up, but soothing music you enjoy, enjoying a nice warm bubble bath, a walk, a bike ride, floating in the pool in the summertime, hanging out with a friend, reading a good book, something that really relaxes you, live theater that you enjoy. If we don't do several like self-love techniques a day, there could be something that comes in your life, a crisis, you don't even have a clue that's coming, that could wipe you out. So I really encourage people to get a copy of Awakening Blessings of Inner Love. This is real life practical techniques that have been tried and proven. Also, for those who love fiction and novels, I keep asking you guys how good of a mystery sleuth are you, but starting today, there's a new book, Rosetta, the Talent Show Queen, and it's a young adult book really for middle school age kids. Rosetta is 10 years old, a spunky pigtailed girl attending Harriet Tubman School, and what she has up her sleeve for the biggest day at the school, the talent show. And I can remember when we had talent shows when we were kids, and the auditorium is packed with students and teachers and administrators, and if they do good, they're going to perform for the whole city. And she really would love to outdo her brainy arch nemesis, Jennifer. But what happens if everything doesn't go according to plan? For those of you who have kids, you're a teacher, you have a grandchild, a child, you have a niece or a nephew, I encourage you to get a copy of Rosetta, the Talent Show Queen. It just came out. And if you don't see it, it's an ebook and in print. If you don't see it, you can just ask the store clerk for a copy of Rosetta, the Talent Show Queen by Denise Turney, and they can get you a copy. And now let us go and meet our very special off-the-shelf guest. And I got to bring her on live. And our special guest this morning is, I hope I'm saying her name correctly, and if I'm not, I hope she corrects me. Our special off-the-shelf guest this morning is Katia Reed, and Katia is a multi-artist, and we'll go into more of that during today's show. She has a background in dance, including jazz and classical ballet. Her first poem was published when she was in the 4th grade. She had also played percussion and studied music. She graduated from Lesley University with a Bachelor of Arts degree in animation. She has also studied and worked in fashion and attended the New York Conservatory for Dramatic Arts and Acting Studio. Or it's And additionally, Katia is the author of the book, The Foretold Story, a debut novel that is part of a 4-part book series. Please check Miss Katia. I want to spell her first name, Katai. Her last name is Reed, Reed, in case you guys want to search on her. But please check Katia out online at theforetoldstory.com, and that is TheForetoldStory.com. Again, that's TheForetoldStory.com. The Foretold Story, 4 with an E after it. TheForetoldStory.com. We are absolutely honored to have Miss Katia Reed join us on Off the Shelf Books Talk Radio this morning. Welcome Off the Shelf, Katia.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Oh, honored to have you on the show. I hope I'm saying your name right. After 15 years, I do Off the Shelf, and I always tell the guests, if I'm not saying your name right, correct me, please. Or if I get something else wrong, please correct me. But it sounds like I got that one right, and what a beautiful name. It's a pleasure to have you here on Off the Shelf. It's one of our legendary guests. I want to just tell you at the beginning, the first 4 questions I ask, the first 3 or 4 I ask every guest, so our listeners can get a little backstory on the guest before we launch right into their books and other works that they're doing. So to kick it off, Miss Katia, can you tell Off the Shelf listeners where you grew up and what life was like for you growing up?
Oh, boy. My life was very interesting. Well, it is very interesting, actually. I kind of grew up more so in New England for the most part, which would be in the Maine area, though I'm originally from New York. I come from very small and humble beginnings. I'm a survivor of a lot of things. My family survived domestic violence, which is a fascinating story in itself. And, here I am today.
Okay. Now, are you? I ask our guests this too as well, because I think it makes a difference when you have, like you said, with growing up with domestic violence, and some of us did have challenges in our childhood. But when you have siblings, or brothers and sisters, that you can ping things off of, you can see how are they responding and reacting to it. I'm told psychologically that's helpful. Where if you're an only child, you only have your one perception to compare and contrast what you're experiencing with. Were you an only child, or did you have brothers and sisters who you grew up with?
Oh, no, I have siblings.
You know what? A lot of times we don't realize it, but that is a huge blessing. Because, again, you have other people to ping things off of to see that you're not the only one going through this. It's just very helpful, whatever you're going through in life, to have somebody else to say, oh, I'm not the only one in this boat. Now, as a kid, Katia, what did you want to be when you grew up? What did you dream of becoming when you were a little girl?
Well, my dream was to be an artist and work for Disney.
Oh, my goodness. Was that on time with that quote? And I had no idea. Oh, my goodness. Talk about on time. Okay. What did you want to do for Disney? Did you want to do, like, animation for their movies or?
Stories and really amazing art. That was my dream. I mean, my first book that really delved me into books actually was the one that my sister got one day from the library. It was a Disney book. It was a very thick one. It was like a biopic kind of book, and it was very like long in language and everything. So I read it, and I was like 4 or 5 years old. I believe I was 4, but I read it, and it had his like stories from the very early beginnings when he had what's that, Oswald? It was like this bunny that he did, but then it got stolen. And it went through his whole career all the way up to Beauty and the Beast. And I was just, wow, this guy is amazing.
Wow.
I want to do stuff like him.
Yeah. Okay, and you did pursue pursue it. As our quote said, you went to the school in New York, and you also not only your dance background, but at Lesley University, you graduated with a Bachelor of Arts in Animation. Then you went on to the New York Conservatory for Dramatic Arts. So you did start to pursue your dream early. Who or what inspired you to pursue writing? You Walt Disney. You saw that you wanted to work for the Walt Disney, the business. But who or what inspired you to pursue writing? Where did that love for writing come from?
Like all of my art, it was just the way I could express myself, and my mom always nurtured that. And I would always write about my days, diaries about my days. I had so many dreams and visions, so I would write those down and write little stories of my own. But I never really, honestly, I never noticed the writing gift until much later. I never thought I would be writing a book, actually. It just kind of just happened. It just happened. But, like, at the age of 9 was when my vision, the larger vision for my book series was birthed, called Gordon's Quest. So I worked on that throughout the years, and it just manifested into this, it's a life of its own, and out of that series came the Foretold Story book series, which I continued writing. And then, like, my college professor, when I was at Lesley University, took an interest in my writing, and he would, like, read excerpts of little stories I'd write to the class, and he's like, you should really, like, you should try writing. And I'm like, nah, I want to be a Disney animator. But it's so crazy because I wanted to do, like, certain things, and it just never happened that way, and then I ended up doing a whole lot of things that I never thought I'd be doing, like what I'm presently doing right now. But, like, the whole thing was, like, I wanted to originally be a Disney animator, but I think this is so far cooler than that.
You know what? So what would you say to our – so you did start pursuing your dream, then you went down a different path. So 2 questions. You watched the story on Walt Disney, and you were just fascinated with him. Did you see that be a similar experience for him, that he initially wanted to do one thing and then was sort of led down a different path? So that's the first question. And the second one is, you said you initially wanted to do animation, and now you're doing this. What advice? First, let me let you answer the first question. Then I have the second one. Is that what happened to Walt Disney? Did he start out with one ambition or dream, and then it kind of steered him down a different path when you read about him or studied him?
I would say for him, he didn't really stray off the path because he was still animating from the get-go. Like, that was what he was doing, like, when he was out of his garage doing animations and things like that. And it just kind of followed him and grew. He came out with Mickey Mouse, and Mickey Mouse is kind of what really set the stage for what we see today of Disney World, this massive Disney empire where the mouse, like, runs 85% of entertainment, which is crazy. You look at this guy who started out with just, you know, it all started with an idea. And his idea was he wanted to draw and animate. And so he kind of got that. His was I would say, straightforward. For me, my path is a little different, but it all ties in at the end of everything. So,
what would you say to somebody who you said what you initially wanted to do, and this wasn't a question I had intended to ask you, but what would you say to somebody, an off-the-shelf listener who's frustrated and thinking about maybe saying their dream just not going to happen? And I've heard stories of people whose lives have really gone into a bad place where they've just given up on a dream. It's just not going to happen for me. They knock on the door, they want something to happen, it doesn't happen, and then they just totally give up on their whole life. What would you say to somebody who starts out pursuing a dream and they go to knock on the door and the door closes? And they might have a degree, but the door won't swing open. What would you say to them as you've seen other doors open for you? What would you say to somebody who's put a lot in, invested a lot in something, but it's just not seeming to work?
I would say, firstly, you can't see the larger picture, you know, the bigger piece. You can't see the bigger picture outside the little puzzle pieces that you get. There's a reason why you're here, and there's a reason for everything you do, and there's a reason for why you have that dream inside of you, and you're the only one who can do it. I would say for me, I trusted God because, you know, at times your faith is going to be tested. Everything's going to come up against you. It's going to tell you, no, you can't do this, you can't do that. And then your situation might come and tell you that you can't do this and you can't do that. But you got to say, no, I'm going to rise. I'm going to gear up. I'm going to armor up. I'm going to get a thick skin, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this because it's in me to do it. It's your vision. It's your dream. You need to do it. And on top of that, it's not even so much, yes, the dream is part of a bigger dream. You don't see it. It doesn't make sense, but it all will make sense later. It's like I always tell this to everyone. What my fourth grade teacher, Mrs. Robbins, told me, and I'm going to continue telling it because it's so important, and it literally, like, it helped me. You know, I didn't understand things. At times, even to this day, I still don't understand things, but it's about making your mark. It's that legacy. It's what you are leaving behind in this world. And what you do, everything you do, it's going to touch someone. We're all connected. And it's, you know, your work and what you have to give, it's assigned to certain people in this world. It's going to give them strength. It's going to give them light. It's going to give them hope, and they're going to keep going. So you, my darlings, cannot give up. You pursue that dream. I need it. I believe in you. I don't know you.
Okay,
Katia.
But I'm
feeling you guys. Do it.
Motivational speaker on deck. Okay, Katia, and thank you for sharing. You know what? And we've had so many guests on. If our listeners went back and listened to every show on Off the Shelf, they would be so empowered and so blessed. As you hear people sharing their own real life experiences, and some have had to flee a country due to unrest in a country. We've had all types of guests on, but they've gone on to pursue their dream, and they have realized some they've had some of it come to pass because they didn't quit. So I want to ask you, getting back to want to talk about your book and your work in different parts of the arts, but to get back, how have you used animation? That was your initial dream. How have you used animation to strengthen your overall storytelling? Because that's visual. So how has that helped you with your storytelling?
Well, it just helps me to be able to convey the message or the feeling I want people to feel. I've used it to the best of my abilities with myself because I don't have a whole team of animators or anything. It's just me. So I just use it whenever I need it to get my message across or to get my point across of whatever I'm trying to do or say or convey. But that's art as a whole. I mean, art in all of its forms is my way of communicating. When I feel I need to do it, I take out certain tools in my tool bucket, if you call it, and I use it for whatever objective I need to get closer to the goal.
And you know what's interesting? Graphic novels, graphic adult novels are starting to sell more. So that animation skill might really come in, or just the sketching might come really, really pay off for you over the next coming years. What was it like, before we start talking about the Foretold Story, what was it like attending the New York Conservatory? What was that experience like?
Boy. What an experience. They're very strict. That was a very strict place compared to my previous university where I was at Wesley, and that was more of like, we're not your parents, but you're going to like do your work and you're responsible for your studies. And if you don't get your studies done, that's on you. This class, well, at the New York Conservatory, if you're even 1 minute late, you get locked out of the class. I remember so many times we would be running from the train station, and we'd be looking at the clock, and we're like, oh, we only got like 1 minute. We might not make it. We'd run out of breath.
Oh, my God.
And there was a few times I got locked out, so I had to, I would lay on my stomach and listen under the door so I could catch all the lessons for the acting. But that was to teach you discipline and respect, much like ballet, which I love. It was to respect the times when you're on a set, because that school deals more with acting and film. So, showing up to the set on time, being prepared, knowing your lines, all of that stuff was very something else. It was a little hard at first, too, because I experienced some bullying from classmates. But in the end, we all became friends, which was amazing. And I met some very amazing people through that and experiences, and it just only more so tempered me to just kind of navigate personalities and stay humble and never bitter, always be forgiving, and keep working hard. Hard.
Very good. Can you share? This is off the shelf. We've had a movie producer on that does like regional films that are on the screens on regional, not across the nation. But I don't know how many. We've had an actress who was on the show maybe a couple of months ago, but we don't have a lot of people in the movie industry or film or live stage on off the shelf. Most are just strictly book writers. So can you share for our listeners who might be curious, what's it like acting in a theatrical production or acting studio class? What is that experience like? Not just going to the school, but actually acting. What is that experience like of storytelling? I'm told it's a lot of waiting, but what is in between doing takes? What is that experience like? Actually acting.
What is acting like?
Yes.
Like just the experience? Well,
yes,
it's really, you know what? I'm going to just say acting is like being that kid on the playground that can turn the playground into a pirate ship, or it can be turned into a rocket ship and you're an astronaut in it. So it's just, you can be anything you want. All you have to do is just believe and imagine, what if I was a doctor? What if I was that business executive? What if I was, a pirate? You become it. You just are. And that's another way of expressing too. And that's, to be an actor though, it takes some courage. Well, any kind of area in the arts, it takes courage to do, because you're kind of standing up there putting your soul out for the world to see. So that's it takes courage to do it. I've done it. I'm a very shy person. I'm very, very shy. I have to, but when I get on stage, it's fun. You just
another part of you
do it.
And you hear that. I've seen movies about people who go to acting, up and coming actors. I actually saw a documentary where a guy was filming himself, and what all he gave to try to. It sounds real easy, and some people, I guess they could say it's luck. Somebody just sees you and says, hey, and you just want to make sure they're not taking advantage of you in any shape or form. But it looks like acting looks tough, which leads into to make it in the industry. I don't mean just acting and being a good actress or actor, but to really earn an income from it. I wanted to ask you, I don't know if you can share this, but some of the students, if you can't give their names, maybe some of the that have done like TV series. Your classmates who you were in the New York Conservatory with, some of them going to do TV sitcoms, major motion films, commercials we see on TV. You don't have to give their name.
Yeah,
so that's the first question.
Some of them. Yep.
And then I wanted to piggytail on that, Katia, with how can we get more diversity? I know there's more focus on that in this like the arts, the film and the stage play industries?
Well, diversity is it's a problem everywhere in all areas of art. But I'd say if you want to have diversity, simply don't judge a man by the color of his skin, but judge him by his heart and his gift. You know, I mean, people just always they just look at the skin color all the time. Can you just acknowledge the person for their craft and who they are, and not their skin color? That would bring more diversity if more people just thought like that. For me, when I was well aware of the whole diversity issue since I was a little girl, 9 years old. And, I realized, there's no characters that look like me. It feels horrible to be left out, And so I just decided to write my own story. Only thing for me is I don't leave anybody out. But, it's a trying test for people. Like, can you just acknowledge someone? And if you could just acknowledge people without the skin color, without looking on what's on their outside, just looking at their raw talent and who they are, you wouldn't need like diversity or need to announce it or anything, because it would just be normal. But I would say if you want it, just do it. Just do it.
And so some of your classmates have gone. They're on commercials. They can continue to pursue acting. They're in sitcoms and in films that we see.
Some of them are.
Oh, okay. You know what they say, networking and the contacts, you never know. Like you said, you can't see the whole from the bits. If people, like we were talking about, being frustrated because the door might not be opening, you can't see the whole picture from the bits. And Steve Jobs said this, but when you get to the end of the road and you look back, you go, oh, that it seems to make sense, and maybe even then we don't understand it, but it seems to make sense when it all starts to come together. Like, oh, I know why that. I can see where that connected with this. So now, to the nit and the grit of what we're here for. Can you give off-the-shelf listeners, Katia, an overview of the Foretold Story?
The Foretold Story is about a young man named Midas, and he has a big dream to work for this renowned tech company. It's like the crown jewel of technology called the Skyscraper Empire, and that's located in the heart of New York City. And he's just had the worst bad things that just keep happening to him. And he's got this dream, and he keeps trying to pursue it, and strange and unusual occurrences happen to him. Everything from, like, supernatural things to, like, just unknown and strange events where he just can't seem to get a leg up and move ahead. And unbeknownst to him, he kind of gets caught up into these higher principalities of the world, if you will, that run everything. And they're kind of manipulating his life in a lot of ways, and he doesn't really realize it. And then on top of that, there's an even greater battle of good versus evil going on between two celestial entities. So it's like this massive, epic thing going on here that our young Midas goes through. But that's pretty much the gist of the story without spoiling anything.
Where did the idea for the Foretold Story come from? Where did you even get the idea?
It came from life and life's unusual encounters that happened in my life, on top of, like, again, my dreams and visions, the dreams I would dream in the night and the adventures, and the visions by day that I would have, and kind of that all factored into this Foretold Story and what we see of the Foretold Story, which is the prequel series to the larger series, Gordon's Quest.
And you said you started on that when you were 9 years old. Wow, yeah. Fascinating. And so you just kept launching out that story until now. You decided, kind of like with the Star Wars, that book doesn't go from the actual events, book 1, the big 2. Book 3 might really be the beginning of the story. And so it sounds similar with what you're doing with the Foretold Story. Now, how far into the future is the story set, and why did you choose this particular time period?
It's pretty far in the future. I would say that's a good question. It's in the future, but it's not too far in the future where there's like Star Trek, like spacecraft kind of things. There's still like, the primitive elements, and then there's the advanced elements of technology, primitive and advanced. But as the story goes, the technology progresses, and the world keeps building with that technology into the larger story, Gordon's Quest, which then you see the full glory of the future world and what New York City is really going to look like, what I think it's going to look like a couple of years. Well, maybe not a couple, maybe like 100 years from now.
Wow. You know what? I was watching a show, and it was kind of like science-based, based on technology we have, what's being worked on now, like this self-driving cars that can actually drive like the Jetsons, where you're driving in the air, and they said that is possible, and you won't have a lot of cars crashing each other, but like they see it, I think within 30 to 50 years we will be doing that. But it kind of sounds like when you look at technology and what's going on, that everything's changing. It's changing at faster paces, and listening to you talk about the Foretold Story, it might sound real sci-fi right now, but when you pay attention to how technology has changed over the last 50 years, it might sound even more realistic. What is the Skyscraper? We know it's set in New York, you told us, but what's the Skyscraper Empire like? Can you physically help us to see what it's like? Who's in control? What is it? Is it a peaceful place? Is there a war going on at the opening of the Foretold Story? What's the Skyscraper Empire like?
The Skyscraper Empire it's a company that has advanced super technologies. It's very renowned. It's respected. It's one of the biggest in the world, and it's run by Job Skyscraper, who's the owner of it. They have amazing technologies every year. They're always helping people. He's known for his kindness because he's always helping as many people as he can with the technology and resources and things like that. So it's very respected, and it's very much envied by a lot of people, and there's a lot of people that want to take it and bring it down. It's the tallest structure in New York City, tallest, beautiful designs, like all the different bridges and all the structures. I don't want to give too much of the places away because a lot of it's all of that's in the books to come. The books now, as you see, will get more into the technology aspect and into Gordon's Quest too, where you get to see like the different things that they do. But it's so awesome.
Is this so? The Skyscraper Empire, is it in Manhattan? Is it in Manhattan? Yes. When you say okay, it does take place in Manhattan. So okay, we see. I'm thinking Times Square, which is where most tourists spend their time when they visit New York City. I'm imagining is it in that area? Anybody who's been in Manhattan just knows the it's not that way now with COVID-19, but generally it's just loads and loads of people. I've worked in New York, and I'm telling you, it was so many tourists on the sidewalks coming home to take the train home. We would, going through Madison Square Garden, Penn Station, would walk in the edge of the street because the sidewalks were jammed with people. You could hardly get, and you're trying to catch your train home. I mean, New York is just bustling. It was just bustling with people. So it's in that area. Is that where the story takes place?
Well, the Skyscraper Empire, it's more located near the Chrysler Building. So that's, let's see. I'd say towards like the Fifth Avenue, Bryant Park areas, like down those streets, near Lexington Avenue. There you go. Lexington and like Sixth Avenue or Fifth Avenue. So it's somewhere towards there. But there's different parts of New York you're going to experience when you read it. As like you see the Metropolitan, which is like awesome. I love that museum. But that's where the Skyscraper Empire's charity ball event takes place, and it is so cool. The most beautiful party that you can attend in a future world, New York City. There's also that goes into they touch Chinatown. You see the subway systems and all kinds of things. So you definitely get that New York experience, and then that whole like the city that never sleeps.
You know what? That's one thing I appreciate about either historical novels or like if you have a futuristic novel, but it is based in part on what's really going on in a location. It's a way to experience a city, to experience a town or a country just through the book. And that's one thing I love about those types of novels. Now, you mentioned him, but could you introduce us a little bit more to Midas Alruli and what makes him tick? What's his background like? What's his family like? What are his goals? If you could just introduce us to him a little more.
So Midas, when you first see him in the story, he's a 17-year-old kid. So it's kind of him navigating through his ends of his high school life into his young adult college life and beyond into the world of, you know, being an adult and trying to pursue your dreams. So you get to see him. He comes from a broken home. You know, he has his mother there and his father. His father is not he's very volatile, his dad. So, you know, Midas gets into a lot of brawls with his father. And that's kind of introduced right into the opening sequence of that chapter. Everybody's like, that's so intense. And I'm like, yeah, these things happen in life, and it's happening to Midas. So he's like, but at the same time, he is so gifted and smart, and he feels alone too. But you kind of just get a sense of who he is. He's an honest, hardworking kid who becomes a young man.
Is his gift in technology? Where is his gift? What area is his gift in?
Technology. He's also an artist too because he draws a lot. But his gift is the technology. He comes up with concepts and can build them, and he knows how to like engineer things. So he's a little genius, that one.
Ah, okay. And he's 16 when the story, the Foretold Story opens.
Or 17, yeah. He's 17 when it opens.
Oh, 17. What makes Erskine Wells, what makes Erskine such a bad boss?
Because he's so perfectly evil. Oh, my goodness. Erskine is a horrible man. Horrible. And if you ever meet one of these people in life, run.
Oh, my goodness. So what is he? Is he selfish? Is he demanding? What makes him so bad? What is it that he does? Does he lie? Does he take credit for other people's work? What makes him such a bad boss?
He's just jealous. He's a jealous person. And it shows, you know, in him and when he is interacting with Midas, the things he just tries to do to sabotage him and bring him down. He's so evil. And for me, like, creating that character, Erskine Wells, was every bad boss I've ever had in my life went into that wicked man. Like, but he's a selfish tyrant. And even, like, the other evil people that are in this book don't like him because he's just so evil.
Wow.
Evil people clash heads with him.
Is he? How old is Erskine Midas is 17. How old is Erskine in the star? Is he in the 40s, his 50s? Is he
He's
older?
in his 40s.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, is Joy Skyscraper, is she the star of the show, and what motivates her? Is she, so Erskine, let me ask you this. Does he own the Skyscraper Empire?
No,
Does he own it?
He owns Materia Oil.
Oh, okay. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so he's a competitor. I'm going to assume he's like a competitor firm in some way to a Skyscraper Empire. Is Joy Skyscraper, is she like one of the senior leaders at Skyscraper Empire? Is she the star of the show and the forward story? And what motivates her?
She comes into play a little later, and she's the heiress to the Skyscraper Empire. So when you first meet her, you kind of get an idea, like, okay, here's this young woman, and she's just naive as Midas. So that's what makes these two so funny together, because they're just naive adulting. But she comes into play a little later. Her character is very adventurous because she's kind of lived a sheltered life, so she kind of emerges out of her shell when she comes into the story and interacts with these different characters, especially when she meets Midas.
Ah. How old is Joyce? Is she 17 when she's, Midas is 17. I'm assuming they're close in age.
Oh, no, because the years progress. He doesn't meet her till they're in their 20s. She's, let's see. Hang on.
She's in her early 20s when they meet, or mid-20s. They're young. They're both young when they meet. So, and you said she was protected, so there's a lot she doesn't know. And then he's young, so he's learning about the world, and I guess even the Skyscraper Empire. Even though he's genius, he comes up with these incredible ideas. Now, who started the Skyscraper Empire, and why did they start the firm?
Well, it was started by Job. I can't really say too much about it because that's in the next book coming out.
Okay.
About like the origins and who built it and where it comes from. But there's a really awesome story behind that too, with which goes more into Job, the father, Joyce's dad. So that's pretty. He's a genius too. He's like the Tony Stark of everything.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So what broke Midas's mother's spirit, and what is she like? When is she introduced in the Foretold Story, and what is she like when the readers first meet her?
You first meet her right in that opening chapter with that intense scene between Midas and his dad. So she's a fragile, broken-spirited woman. She loves her family, but it's just so toxic. It's toxic. But she, most of people that read and continue reading get mad at me because of what transpires for Adele. And then, again, in the next book coming, you get more of Adele's backstory and how, like, she ties into all of the bigger story. Everything's so intricately connected.
Okay. Now, who were your favorite characters to create, and why were they such fun for you to create?
My favorite character? Well, I liked them all. I enjoyed them all, but I would have to say for today, right now in this moment, I'd say Sicario. Sicario. Right now, Sicario, he's so funny. No, actually, I changed my mind. Maybe Denny. I like Denny. Oh, I can't pick. Okay, but just for the sake of this, I'll just say, can I just pick two for today?
Sure. Who were your favorite characters, plural, and why did you like these characters so much? I thought you were going to say Midas, but who were your favorite characters, plural?
Oh.
Who were your favorites?
I love them all. But for right now, in this moment, I would say Sicario, because he's just really funny. Well, I don't want to give the story away, but his part is so funny. He's like, he's one of those characters that show up a little later, but he's like a fanatic, and he's just, oh my goodness. He's just this funny guy. I can't explain it. You just have to kind of read it. And then we've got Denny. I love Denny. Denny is kind of comes at the magical moments of the book. So this book is like a cinematic, multi-genre sci-fi fantasy. I made it up because I feel like there's no real genre for it. And everyone's like, oh, it's one thing and one thing. So I'm like, I'm going to call it a cinematic, multi-genre sci-fi fantasy because it has a little bit of everything. So, and each of these, like, you know, it's got that thriller, suspense, the fantasy, the sci-fi, the drama, the slice of life, the happy moments, the horror side. But Denny comes at a magical moment in the book where she exists in another place called the Celestial Realm. And she's this so beautiful, dark-skinned being that's up in those heavenly places. So she's really phenomenal, and she's kind of inspired by my aunt. My aunt and my mom put together. Her nickname is Wisdom. And she's got like this big old afro. It's so beautiful.
You know, this is one thing I love about Off the Shelf. The more the author talks about her, his book, the more interesting the story becomes. You know what I tell authors is we had an author on once. She kept saying, no, I don't want to tell. I don't want to give it. No, I don't want to tell. I said, no, you don't have to give the story away, but you have to tell enough about the story, as you're doing, to make the reader interested or to make them even want to buy your book. You can't just not tell them anything and say the title of the book and go out and buy it. You have to give them enough information to make them want to read the story. So, and the more people talk about their books on Off the Shelf, I can feel it even in myself. I'm like, this story is becoming more and more interesting as the author shares more about the story. Had you always, Katia, intended to make this a four-part series? And then I have to ask you this as well, because you started on the story itself when you were 9, and then it became the Foretold Story later. Have you already written multiples of the book? I know authors who do that. You always intended to make it a 4-part series, and have you already written 2 or more books in the series?
Well, I never intended it to be a 4-part, but the first book was way too long, so I had to cut it into parts. So that's why book 1 is part 1 cut into 2 parts. Too long. But I never really thought it would be a book series, honestly. It just happened that way. And I hope that answered the question. What was the other question?
Had you already written and you answered it? The first book was so long you broke it into 2 parts, but I find that interesting. You never intended to make it a series. Series books are so popular now as an author. When you're thinking about how you're going to generate income, you say, well, if I write a 6-part book series and somebody wants to keep up with all of the story, I just sold 6 books to one person. If you write a standalone book, it's harder to sell 6 books to one person. In a series, it's a little easier, and that's why you see a whole lot of series books out now, because if you write a 10-part series, that's 10 books to one person. The likelihood of you selling more books just goes up, rather than if you write just standalone books. I generally write standalone. Then Rosetta's are going to be a series. But the Foretold Story, as you described, is a cinematic type novel. Are there plans, Katia, to turn the story into a movie?
Oh, well, it's, you know, that whole thing about things don't make sense. You just get like little puzzle pieces and you just start putting things together. Well, originally it was just, the larger story, Gordon's Quest, which is currently right now in the form of movie scripts.
Wow.
That was my intent. So all these years when I was working on my stories and just developing them, and I was also getting my education and things like that and trying to overcome the challenges of life, I was creating and manifesting. Yeah, life was, man, I had some rocky moments. But a lot of those moments went into my books and my characters, so it was great. But it's like all these, my goal originally when I was a kid was to be that Disney animator, but things just didn't happen that way for me. I ended up kind of wearing all caps of everything. I became that director and directed. I became that writer and wrote. I became that artist and drew. And I became that musician and composed. I became everything. And I manifested all of this work, this body of work, this entity with a greater vision, which is the Gordon's Quest motion pictures, which was the original goal. The Foretold Story was never really a goal. It just kind of happened. It just happened, And my whole thing is it wasn't really so much about the money aspect. It was just about that mark, what I want to say to the world, what I want to leave behind in the world. That was the more of the goal for me. So it's nice to, be recognized once in a while.
You know what? I wish you the best, and I hope it's Gordon's work, because I would love to look out for it and be just tickled. I tell some of our guests, we've had guests on, one who was on CNN, TV One, and one who has a regional a radio show, two, and to see guests who've been on this show, some I turn on the TV, I'm like, oh my God, or just to see somebody take off. And so if I see the name of this book, I say, oh my God, we interviewed Katia Reed. It's Gordon's Quest. I have to keep my eyes out for that. Who knows, in 2 or 3 years I might look up and see an ad for a movie called Gordon's Quest, produced or directed by Katia Reed. And I'm like, oh my goodness, Gordon's Quest. Now, what, Katia, have readers been saying about the Foretold Story? What have you been hearing from readers about the book?
Some people, they said they had, highs and lows with emotions up and down, and they really felt for Midas. A lot of them said they see themselves in a lot of these characters, or they see people that they know in their life. That reminds them, a lot of people, again, they'll be like, I know Erskine Wells because I have an Erskine Wells in my life. Or they're like, I'm a Midas because I have had so many things that this kid went through. I feel it and I'm there. And then, they love the vividness of the story because I'm so descriptive. I was always a detailed person in my writing, so it spills out into these books. And then they're like, it's like you're right there and you can see everything so perfectly. And then I just get a lot of moments where they'll get mad at me for something that happened to the character.
Yeah, you know what? That comes with, yes, like, why did you let that happen? Why didn't you? Yes, readers want a certain outcome, and then sometimes they don't get it. But I think that keeps the reader connected to the story, especially if, you got a four-part series, so they don't know exactly what's coming next. Can you share, I hear your enthusiasm, your passion for what you do, and then with your work in film and acting, the New York Conservatory, you said the reader sees, they can visually see the story unfolding, which I think is powerful. Can you share 3 to 4 steps, Katia, that you found to be effective as we come down to the last few minutes of today's show? Can you share 3 to 4 steps that you found to be effective at getting the word out about your stories?
You just got to keep telling about it, keep talking about it, post about it, and just don't stop talking about it and keep reaching out and don't give up. It's not going to happen overnight. These things take time, but to get the word out, you just have to keep doing. keep doing. And, you know, even if you only get like 2 readers or 5 readers, it's still adding up, and you don't see the bigger picture again because these things take time. You have a little seed here you're planting in the ground, so it takes time for it to grow. So be patient and don't compare yourself to others. That's a no-no. For one, you don't know the price they paid for what they have. And 2, that's just a hindrance.
Yeah.
Always look for better. Yeah. Oh, and business. Yes. Authors should learn business. Numbers and understand your demographics. Be a businessman. Talk to a person that deals with business and all those kind of marketing things. You know, I've had to kind of become that too. I didn't think I would be. I thought I was just going to be a Disney animator. I'm like, what the heck, man? Dude, I'm like, I'm a business person too. I got to take off the author cap and put on my business cap, and you know, learn about business and making and selling and understanding how do you market this book. You know, what can you do with it? There's only so many ways you can sell a book. Now you got to be a little creative and think of things you never thought, and you'll get results.
And I think being creative is one way where you heard like people with poetry doing the spoken word. That's one way when you're creative and you get out front. If you get enough traction, that's one way that you could launch. Mm-hmm. And then another thing I'm learning is some people really go big with just a few books, and that's I'm thinking back to the classics, the James Baldwins, and for poetry, Gwendolyn Brooks. But it's changed so much. The literary industry has changed so much that now you have to keep publishing at least 1 or 2 books a year. That's what I'm hearing, to really pick up. And people who do that, they go on to make a lot of money, sell a lot of books. They love what they're doing, and they can do it full time. But the days of doing 1 book every 5 years might be over, unless you like J.K. Rowling in that book. But even she came out with more and more stories, so you have to keep coming out with more and more books. That is a great marketing tip, you guys. I'm telling you, you have to keep coming out with new material. Now, Go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't mean to speak.
You said we must be. You were saying we must be.
Oh, stay true to yourself. You know.
Yeah.
Just stay true to yourself and your work, and don't be afraid to learn something new. Try something new. Maybe you should try an acting class, writers, because that's a good way to understand dialogue and just to really put yourself in those characters' shoes. I have all around art background, which I think helped me to develop this product. So don't be afraid to dive into those things.
Interesting.
Go take a thinking class.
Interesting.
You know, you'll work that brain.
Interesting. Very interesting. Where can off-the-shelf listeners get a copy of The Foretold Story?
Well, they can get it at Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Books A Million. I also have direct links on the Foretold Story website, theforetoldstory.com. There in the Read It Now tab is the direct link to the books as well.
Do you have any upcoming speaking engagements? I love your energy, your passion. Can you let our listeners know about a few, even that we know we're in the virtual world? But if you have any upcoming speaking engagements, can you share a few of those with us?
Well, I know I have a speaking engagement with the Noble Knights High School podcast, which I've never spoken to high school kids, so this should be an interesting experience to share with them. And I'll be telling them some funny stories, the things they don't tell you when you become an adult.
Okay. Awesome. I think that is awesome. So that's open to the high school. Kudos to you for that. And then I also wanted to ask you, let us know if you have any other upcoming speaking engagements, and where can off-the-shelf listeners find you on social media?
They could find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Again, at the foretoldstory.com website has all the social media links. It's also interlinked with my other websites like Gordon's Quest so you can also find me there, or vscene.net, which is my artist page, all interlocked on theforetoldstory.com. So, yeah, you can find me there.
Okay. Oh, my goodness. I'm wish you the best with your virtual high school event. I'm sure you are going to be a lot of fun. Those kids are really going to love you. We have had the absolute pleasure of having Katia Reed. She is a multi-artist. She has a background in dance, including jazz and classical ballet. She published her first poem when she was only in the 4th grade. She's also played percussion and studied music. And she graduated from Lesley University with a Bachelor of Arts in Animation. And she also worked at the York Conservatory. If you came in midstream, you go back and listen to the show in its entirety when it goes into the archives, and you can listen to some of what she talked about attending the New York Conservatory. Especially, you had to be on time, so she told us about, and you can learn more about how she created and the thought process behind the creation of the Foretold Story. Katia Reed is online, and I encourage you to visit her online at theforetoldstory.com, and that's TheForetoldStory.com. Again, that's TheForetoldStory.com. Katia, Kitia Reed, if you want to Google her or search her. Thank you so much, Katia, for being here with us. Really enjoyed having you here, talking about the Foretold Story and your other arts. And just amazing coincidence that we started with the Walt Disney quote. You got to go after your dreams. It's March the 6th. There's no time to waste. Go after your dreams, and if a door doesn't open like Katia, she's living proof. You might be led down a different road, but don't give up and keep going. Come back next Saturday. We have another awesome guest for you, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Off the Shelf Books Talk Radio. And as I always tell you, you really, really, really are amazing. You are awesome. You are phenomenal. Go out and create a wonderful day for yourself today. Katia, I'll shoot you an email when the show finishes streaming. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Bye for now.